welcome to your check-in review following your week 2 check-ins. So we are a quarter of a way through already. Hopefully you are starting to get into the swing of things now. If you are not, if you have any questions, please don't forget to use the Facebook group. It's there for asking questions. I will jump in and I will respond to any questions that you have. And it might be that other people in the group might have some ideas. So please do use that as a resource if you are stuck. And don't feel like you have to wait until you get your check-in to ask me questions. Had a few good ones in the check-ins this week. So I am going to start with one comment that was just about incorporating a bit more cardio. So I was thinking that this isn't actually something that I have talked about too much at this stage. There is a document about exercising for fat loss. And in the document, I've kind of talked about how I don't really want you to view exercising as a tool for fat loss. Although there are benefits, I want you to think of exercising as something that you should be doing anyway, regardless of whether or not you want to change your body composition, because exercising is good for your health and it is something that I want you to be doing for the rest of your life, essentially. So I kind of want you to separate it away from fat loss. However, when it comes to cardio, this is something that is useful to include if you do have a fat loss goal, because it does tend to burn more energy, which helps with that energy expenditure equation that we have talked about before. If you want to lose fat, you want to be in an energy deficit, and you can achieve that either by consuming less energy or using more energy, or my recommendation, doing a combination of both. So certainly incorporating cardio does increase your energy expenditure, which can in turn increase your energy deficit, as long as you don't try and eat back all of the calories that you've burned when you're doing your cardio. So cardio can be helpful for fat loss, but the reason I just wanted to mention it is, again, although it can be helpful for fat loss, I do just want to reiterate how important it also is for your health. So cardio is really good for your cardiovascular health. That's what it's short for. So keeping our heart healthy, keeping our lungs healthy, keeping our vascular blood system healthy. So even if you don't have a fat loss goal, it's worth incorporating some form of cardio anyway, if you can, just to, like I said, keep up with the cardiovascular side of things. And I'm going to put my hand up here and admit that I'm not perfect here. I love strength training. That is my jam. That's what I tend to do the most of. And I don't really do much cardio outside of walking. I walk a lot. I have a high step count per day, which counts towards my cardio, but definitely it's something that I need to improve on a bit myself. So I just thought I would mention that around cardio, because it's something that if you have a fat loss goal, you definitely could benefit from including at this stage as well, even though most of my talking has generally been about the strength training side of things. Next one. This is something that I'm going to go, okay, this is a comment and I'm going to unpack it a little bit. So I don't really have a lot of context to go on, but I've been asked for what are some go-to treats that don't contain sugar. Now, I don't know what the context is here, so I might just be misinterpreting this, and I'm about to go on a rant that's completely unnecessary, but I think it's a useful thing to understand anyway. So I guess what I want to unpack is just the sugar side of things. I believe that sugar has been really demonized over the years. It has got a bad rap. And currently, I had a conversation with one of my clients this week. She was watching a podcast by somebody called the Glucose Goddess, who is a French biochemist. And she has made a big name for herself by basically talking about how dangerous glucose is and how bad it is when our blood sugars spike, and we have to eat in a certain way, which is actually quite disordered. And we should all be monitoring our glucose. And it's a load of rubbish, but she's getting a lot of airtime. She was featured on Diary of a CEO, which is a big podcast. Again, generally contains a lot of rubbish on there as well. Anyway, I don't want to give her more of a platform, but it is showing to me that it is out there in the world that people think sugar is a bad thing. In 2019, there was a review paper done looking at the role of dietary sugar with our health outcomes. And it says, I've written this down because I wanted to get this right. It says, its conclusion, current scientific evidence does not support the conclusion that dietary sugars per se are detrimental to health. So the sugar itself isn't a problem. It's not detrimental to our health, but it did say per se. The per se is because we don't tend to eat sugar on its own. We don't tend to get teaspoons into our bag of granulated sugar and eat it straight off the spoon. Sugar tends to be mixed with fat and salt. And when sugar is mixed with fat and salt, it becomes what is called hyperpalatable. Delicious. It is delicious. And when a food is hyperpalatable, it is hard to stop eating it. You crave those foods. And the problem with these hyperpalatable foods, other than you crave them, you cannot stop eating them, is that they tend to be more calorie dense because it is a combination of sugar and fat. And if you remember from the documents that I've sent you already, fat does contain more calories per gram. So when these things come together, it's very easy to overconsume them. It's easy to crave them, and it's hard to stop. So the health problems tend to come from the overeating of these products. People blame the sugar, but it's the combination of the products plus the marketing, everything on top. All of that comes together, and it's the overconsumption of calories that lead to health problems. If you overconsume calories and you're in an energy surplus, you're going to gain body fat. The more body fat that you store, the worse your health outcomes are later on in life. So sugar has been linked to this. However, there's no evidence to show that sugar cannot be included as part of a well-balanced diet. And that's kind of what the whole vibe is with the program that I have prepared for you. I've already told you to focus the vast majority of your diet on whole foods and to still keep the treat stuff in there, because as long as it's not being overconsumed and as long as you are feeding your gut health by eating fiber, as long as you're focusing on your protein, all of these things are working towards a fat loss goal, if that is your goal. Not everybody has a fat loss goal in the group. But all of those things mean your body is fine. It's working as it should be. So you don't need to worry about including those treats that might have sugar in. If you have diabetes, 1 or 2, then that's when you need to start thinking about sugar, because of your insulin signaling has got an issue. But if you don't have diabetes, then you don't have to worry about these things. And this bloody glucose goddess, all of the studies that she spouts, is all done on people that have obesity and type 2 or type 1 diabetes. So she's kind of taking data for a very specific population, and she's kind of basically saying that everybody needs to be aware of these things, and we don't. We just need to be aware of what we are consuming. What is the balance? Are we consuming so much that we're going to end up gaining body fat, which might in turn lead to detrimental health outcomes later on in life? But it's not the sugar per se that is doing that. Anyway, I might have got the context completely wrong there. It might just be that the person that asked this doesn't like sugar. Anyway, the question was, are there any go-to treats that don't have sugar? So now that I have explained that actually there isn't really a problem with sugar as long as you're not over consuming it. So hopefully you can just enjoy your sugary treats with no guilt. However, there are some things that, and this is So this is the tricky thing. So I was going to suggest, things like Greek yogurt with some raspberries, but raspberries contain fructose, which is sugar. Your body, when it breaks down foods in digestion, fructose. So you've got monosaccharides and disaccharides. Monosaccharides is glucose. Goes into your body, it is glucose already. Your body absorbs it. If it goes in and it's a disaccharide, so I think lactose, which is found in dairy products, lactose is basically two glucose molecules stuck together. So when you digest it, it breaks it apart into two glucose molecules. So your body breaks any carbohydrate down into glucose, little singular glucose. But when it goes into your body, it's all stuck together. So starchy carbohydrates, for example, will still get broken down into glucose. There's just lots of other chains that need to be broken, but it still ends up in your body as glucose. So I was about to say Greek yogurt with some fruit, some berries mixed through, but then actually fruit is sugary as well. And you can see now why this is a bit more complicated, because nobody in their right mind should ever be telling you not to eat fruit. Fruit is really good for you. It contains lots of micronutrition, which we know is important. It contains lots of fiber, which is really important. So we do still need to be incorporating these into our diets. So fruit, look, it doesn't have added sugar, so I'm going to add that in. Something that I have been doing recently, because it's actually getting really hot now, I buy diced mango frozen. And sometimes I just take a little dice of mango out of the bag and I'll just suck on my little frozen mango, and it just leaves this really lovely sweetness in my mouth, but it's from mango. It's not from any added sugar. Another thing that I like, and this might just be me being weird, because I view this as a treat. And again, actually, I'm about to say fruit, but you could do this in another way. I actually like peanut butter on things as a treat. So another thing that I do is I'll chop up an apple, sweetness, fructose, and I might slice some cheese, and I'll have cheese and apple. Also works well with pineapple, cheese and pineapple. That's a very British thing. We make little sticks with a pineapple chunk and a cheese chunk, and that's a nice combination. So pineapple and cheese, apple and cheese, peanut butter spread on apple slices, I actually find a really nice treat. So again, these are things that have sweetness, but they are, I guess, coming from a more natural place because it is fruit. You could go down the route of things like stevia, which are sugar flavors, but they don't have the calories. Again, this is an area, I need to have a look at the most up-to-date research, but this is another area where people get a bit crazy about things like aspartame and fake sugars. I will need to check on the most up-to-date data to see if anything new has been released. But again, there was no kind of detrimental impact found on health. However, I might need to check that because I didn't prepare that beforehand. So, but that is an option because you can kind of get low sugar, but sugary flavor things like yogurts, mousses, things like that. So I don't know if I've answered the question very well. Again, a sugary without any added sugar, I'm going to go down that route. You can make yourself little bliss balls by macerating up some dates. Dates are so yummy. They've got that really nice sweetness. Again, a natural product. You can mix that up. You can chop that up in a blender, add some coconut, add different things. You can make yourself your own little kind of bliss balls. You can make little granola bars. So a few different things that you can do. Nuts are, some of them, depending on the nut, can be fairly sweet. Obviously, I'm talking about natural nuts with nothing added to them. So few different options there. Again, I don't know if I've just gone off in a massive tangent and have not helped you at all, but there's a little snippet into my brain. If that doesn't answer the question, please let me know and I'll jump in with some more ideas. Final thing that I want to cover today, and actually I think this is a really relevant topic for this time of year, because it is 6 weeks. When I'm recording this, it's 6 weeks until Christmas Eve, which is not long at all. And that means it is silly season and people are having parties, offices are having parties. There are way more social occasions than usual, and you might find yourself going out to restaurants, eating out more. And the question here was about how do I manage tracking my calories and my protein when I am eating out? And this is a really good question. And actually, this is something that I want to actually develop a help sheet on, because a lot of the information I've provided you so far is about tracking when you're at home, when you can weigh what you are eating, when you can scan barcodes, and it's all very easy. When you go out, you absolutely don't know what is going on. But I do have some tips around how to kind of keep a track of things when you are going out. Before I go into that, I just want to remind you just around calorie tracking accuracy. I did note this in one of the documents. Don't forget that calorie tracking is never going to be 100% accurate. Even if you have the best intentions, even if you're doing all barcodes, everything, it is still really, really difficult to be completely accurate with calorie tracking. And this is one of the reasons why I've given you a range to fit within, rather than me saying 1,800 calories and then you stressing out because you've gone 10 calories over. I've given you a range because calorie tracking isn't accurate even when you're using things like barcodes. Companies are allowed to have a discrepancy of up to 20% on the calories that they can write on their packaging. So before I say these things, I just want you to remember, don't fret about not being able to get it perfect, because you can't get it perfect ever anyway. So have that in the back of your mind. But there are some things that you could do to give you an idea. If you're in the UK, which quite a few of you in this group are, something that I noticed when I was there last year, and it blew my mind, and I couldn't decide if I thought it was a good idea or not, was that a lot of menus actually have the calories written in the menus now. And from memory, I think that was just calories and not other macronutrients like protein, because obviously we are interested in protein. So it might be that actually the nutritional information is already available for you. What I was going to say is, what you can do, if you know where you're going in advance, you can always have a look online and see if they've got their menu online and if they do have some nutritional information. I know that a lot of, I guess, chain restaurants do tend to have their nutritional information online. For example, in New Zealand, I know that St. Pierre's Sushi have all of their nutritional information online. So does the Wild Bean Cafe. I'm sure that no one is going for their Christmas party at the Wild Bean Cafe, but I know this because I have actively looked for the information for myself, because I go to both of those places. So you could always check on the website of the restaurant that you're going to, see if they do have the nutritional information posted somewhere on their website, because often they can do. If they don't, you could search for a similar restaurant and see if they have got their nutritional information up. So although you know it's not going to be the exact same, it doesn't matter, because it's not going to be accurate anyway, but it will give you a rough ballpark. So if you can think of a similar restaurant that is more of a chain style, you can check their website, find the meal that you are planning on having, or if you're doing it afterwards, find the meal that's most similar to the one that you had and use that as a rough ballpark. You can also do that on MyFitnessPal. You can actually just search for a meal. It's going to give you so many different options, because there are lots of different options for things, lots of different ways to make things. If you have a fat loss goal and you're trying to be in an energy deficit, if you do find loads of different options on MyFitnessPal, overestimate, because you want to be in a calorie deficit. So it's better to overestimate than it is to underestimate and actually end up being more in a deficit that you didn't realize. However, after all of those things, it could also be that you just don't worry about it. And this comes with a caveat. If you very rarely go out, if you cook for yourself most meals or most of your meals, and you're going out once a fortnight, don't worry about it. Just go out, have a good time, make some good choices, and then draw a line on it and get straight back on track the next day. A lot of times where it goes wrong is that you don't know what your calories are. So you're like, oh, well, I've probably had loads. So now I've stuffed it up. So now I'm just going to eat everything because I've already ruined it. That's the problem. That's the problem. If you can just draw a line under it and say, cool, I went out, probably had more calories than was in my, I'm probably not in a calorie deficit. That's okay. Just draw a line, get straight back on it the next day. And don't continue to overeat, because that's the mindset, isn't it? That's what happens. It's like, oh, I've already had this, so I've ruined it now, so I might as well just have this and I'll start again on Monday. But it's the continuation of the overeating that is the problem, not the actual overeating in itself. So if you were going out and it's a one-off, don't worry about it. Just make a good choice. Check your protein document. Choose protein as the star of your dish. Have a steak, have a fish. Depends where you're going, really. But, try and make protein the star of your dish. Try and include as many veggies as you can, but mostly just have a good time. And like I said, move on. If you are going out multiple times per week, that's probably when you want to actually start checking the menus. You can pre-decide in advance what you're going to have. It might be, if you're really wanting to focus on your calories, if you know you're going out on Saturday, you could just start to eat a little bit less Monday through Friday, maybe even 100 calories less. Or if I've given you, let's say I've given you a range of 1600 to 1800, Monday to Friday, really try and hit just 1600. Gives you a little bit more leeway when it comes to your meal out on Saturday. Just so you've got a bit more to play with. So on average at the end of the week, you're going to be either at your maintenance or in a deficit still, just a smaller deficit. So I'm going to create more information about that as well, as I think that's a really good topic. But hopefully that gives you enough information for now. If not, please do ask me a question below, and we'll go from there. Have a great week, and I look forward to recording another video next week.